David Klecher is a very popular and well-known athlete among the track and field world. His name is known all around the world for his accomplishments and record-setting times. You may ask why he didn't participate in the Olympics in Beijing. The answer has nothing to do with his personal choice, but instead choices that were made for him that kept him from competing. Here is his story along with a personal one-on-one interview. David Klecher was born on April 29, 1988 in Walnut Creek, California. He is the son of Bill and Yvonne Klecher, along with his older brother Brian. David grew up in his hometown of San Ramon, California, all the way up to the start of his college career. Being from the same town as David, I agreed with him when he said, "Growing up in San Ramon is not very fun for a kid, but I owe this community a lot because it always kept me focused on school and track. With all my commitments, I was never really able to have much of a social life or get into any trouble like a lot of the other kids." David feels like he has missed out on a lot of social experiences due to his commitments, but his friends and family assure him that he has not and should have no regrets. David attended California high school and came in as a normal kid who loved to play soccer, swim, and run track. He was extremely talented in all these sports, but with time he knew it would have to come down to only one. His freshman year he managed to swim and run track for his school and also play club soccer for the city of Pleasanton. David says, "I remember my freshman year especially because it was the year that I did absolutely nothing but go to school and run around for all these sports. What kind of social life was I expected to make for myself when I didn't even have time to visit with my own family?" Taking notice of his schedule, David knew he was going to have to cut out one of his sports, and with much regret, he had to let go of soccer. Soon after his freshman year, he had to cut just one more of his sports and focus only on one sport from now on. As you can probably tell, he chose to stick with track. "Cutting out two of my favorite sports to play was like quitting an addiction. I went through serious withdrawals, but I know something bigger was waiting for me in track," said David. David's sophomore year was when he really started to train hard and began to look promising as a track and field athlete. He was dropping a lot of seconds off his running events and kept developing better stamina and strength. "My coaches kept pushing me to see which events I could do, and before you know it, I was training for almost every running event there is. After all this, I became interested in hurdling, which I have never done before. It started off well until one day I miscued a step, hit a hurdle, and broke my collarbone after falling. I thought to myself, well, I'm never doing this again, but after I healed up, I tried again. This single decision to try again changed my life forever," said David. David began to focus mainly on hurdling his last 2 years of high school, but he did participate in other events as well. At track meets starting his junior year, he began to blow away his competition. Not a single person could keep up with this 6'4" lanky athlete from San Ramon. Other competitors would be in shock just watching him cruise over the hurdles. After competing locally, David started to get invites to prestigious meets that only top track runners in California were invited to. Think he would be competing with others more experienced and faster than him, David managed to beat all of them as well. This marked the time when David's name would become popular in the track world. Soon after, all sorts of college scouts came to watch and see if this kid was the real deal, and David definitely was. His senior year was very stressful in the sense that he would have to perform at his best because that's what was expected of him. Even still, David was dropping time off his races and shattered the competition. He took first in all of his events at track meets, and people started labeling him a freak when it came to track, especially running. I was very shocked at the amount of publicity and support I got from the community. That support was the fuel that kept me training hard and motivated to get better. At this point, I began to race against runners from all over the United States. I mean the top track runners from all over, and these people lived the sport," said David. To no surprise, David beat them and set national records for the 400 hurdles and the 110 hurdles. He went on to win the Junior Olympic 110 and 400 hurdles, making him #1 in the nation among high school athletes. Not much later, he went to Latin America and took third in the world in the 110 hurdles. Even Gatorade named David their track and field athlete of the year, a prestigious award even athletes like Derek Jeter and A-Rod Rodriguez won growing up in high school. Despite all this, David still needed to think about college. After achieving all of his success in high school, David had numerous full-ride scholarship opportunities to all of the big track and field colleges. Choosing which school was one of the most difficult decisions David has ever had to make. He decided on attending and running for the UCLA Bruins. Thinking this was his best choice and most promising school to prep him for the Olympics, he was wrong. At first I was excited to run for UCLA, said David. My dream of running in college had finally come true. But with time, things began to take a turn for the worst. I was required to train way too much and had very little time to recover, which athletes definitely need to have. My coach pushed me too far and eventually I put a tear in my quad and stress fractures in both my legs. I was so upset, especially when I found out that I couldn't recover in time for the Olympic qualifiers. With all that had occurred at UCLA, I made my choice to leave and transfer to my former second-choice school, the University of Oregon, said David. To this day, David is still attending the University of Oregon and redshirted his first season there. He has recovered from what UCLA has done to him and looks into the future with an optimistic attitude. David says, I have been through a lot. To stop now, I would be letting myself down. My dream is to represent the United States in the next Olympic Games, and I am going to do everything in my power to make that happen. David is a very unique individual and would make a great role model for kids if he is to ever make it big in the Olympics. All of his accomplishments and successes he has had never changed who he was. Most athletes would probably become cocky and boastful, but not David. What is also interesting is that David managed to maintain a 4.0 GPA through high school and college. Bottom line, David is the definition of a scholar athlete.